I told myself I wouldn't look again. I had promised it so many times, repeated it like a mantra every time I stepped through the community center doors. Don't look at her. Don't seek her out. Don't let your eyes find what your heart won't be able to forget. But the thing about Charlotte Monroe is that not looking at her feels like denying the sun exists while it scorches your skin. She was just across the room, her back half turned toward me, talking to one of the other parents, her hand resting lightly on her hip, the hem of her linen blouse riding slightly up her waist every time she shifted. She laughed at something they said, a soft, low laugh that made my stomach flip violently, and then turned her head slightly, eyes scanning the room, as if she could feel me watching. I dropped my gaze too late. My pulse was already racing. The room was filled with the sound of children yelling, laughing, fighting over markers and snacks, but none of it reached me the way she did. 34.
Divorced.
A kid in kindergarten. And somehow, despite every logical, emotional, and moral barrier I had tried to put up between us, she was the only thing I could think about. I wasn't supposed to be here because of her. I joined the after-school volunteer program because I needed credit for my final semester in social work. It was a practical, easy choice. A few hours each afternoon, some community engagement, a chance to make a difference.
I didn't know she'd be there.
I didn't know she worked part-time as a coordinator, organizing activities for the kids, helping single parents juggle their impossible schedules. I didn't know her son, Milo, would become obsessed with building dinosaur worlds and that he'd ask me to help every time. I didn't know that her voice would stick to the edges of my thoughts at night when I tried to sleep, soft and steady, like the ocean slipping under my skin. But once I knew, I couldn't unknow it. Charlotte wasn't flashy. She wasn't loud. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. She wasn't the type of woman who commanded attention by trying to take it. She just existed with this quiet, magnetic presence, like gravity, like a secret only I could see. The first time I heard her say my name, I felt it for hours afterward, like she had reached inside me and touched something no one else ever had. She didn't talk to me much. Not more than she had to. There was always a slight reserve in her voice when she addressed me, like she was holding herself back. I wasn't sure if she felt it too, the tension, the current, the electricity that sparked every time our eyes met for too long. Maybe she was just being careful. Maybe she didn't feel anything at all. But then again, maybe she did. Today she wore this pale green button-down tucked into dark jeans, sleeves rolled to her elbows, exposing slender wrists and forearms dusted with faint freckles. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, a few strands falling around her cheekbones in a way that didn't feel accidental. She looked tired, but beautiful. Always beautiful. I was sitting cross-legged on the mat, surrounded by kids and crayons and chaos, trying to help a group of 4-year-olds construct paper crowns without gluing their hands together, when I saw her glance over. Just a second. Just a flicker of her eyes in my direction. But it landed like thunder. She looked away quickly, but I'd already stopped breathing. "You okay?" one of the kids asked, tugging at my sleeve. "Yeah," I whispered, barely managing a smile. Just thinking. Another lie. I was drowning. Later, when most of the parents had arrived and the kids were being herded toward their backpacks and coats, I saw her again by the snack table, refilling the coffee pot like it mattered. She looked up just as I was walking past and gave me a tight smile. I smiled back. Too fast, too bright, and stopped myself from saying something stupid. "Hey," she said, voice low, calm, as she wiped a drip from the table with a paper towel. "Milo said you helped him build a volcano today." I swallowed hard. He did most of it. I just held the glue. "He won't stop talking about it," she said, glancing sideways at me. "He said you're the only one who knows the difference between a triceratops and a stegosaurus." I laughed, too nervously. "Well, that's a serious honor." She didn't laugh.
But she watched me.
And her eyes said something else. "You're good with him," she said after a pause. "With the kids." I felt that dangerous warmth bloom in my chest. I like them, I said, my voice softening. They're honest. You can tell when they trust you. It's different with adults. Yeah, she said, looking down at the counter. It is. There was a beat of silence, the kind that isn't awkward but charged, like the air is holding its breath. She looked up again and reached for the sugar packets, but her fingers brushed mine. Only slightly. Only for a moment. But I felt it like fire.
She paused.
Didn't pull away instantly. And then she did. You've got glitter, she murmured, reaching up to brush a speck from my cheekbone. Her fingers were warm. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. She stepped back quickly, clearly aware she'd gone too far. Her expression shuddered, retreating behind that composed, distant mask I hated so much. See you tomorrow, she said, her tone clipped. She turned before I could say anything. I stood there for a few seconds, heart pounding, breath caught somewhere in my throat, wondering if I'd imagined it. The touch, the look, the shift in her voice. But I hadn't, and that terrified me, because the moment her fingers brushed my skin, I realized something that made everything infinitely more complicated. I wanted her, not just in a fleeting surface way, not just because she was beautiful or kind, or the first woman who made me feel like my body was humming from the inside out. I wanted her in the kind of way that made breathing hurt, and no matter how hard I tried to bury it, it kept rising, steady and undeniable, like a wave I couldn't stop.
She was divorced.
She had a kid. She had boundaries, a life, a whole world that had nothing to do with me. But none of that changed the truth echoing inside my chest. Charlotte Monroe made my heart race, and I was already too far gone.
I didn't sleep that night.
I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to will away the image of her fingers brushing against my skin, the softness in her eyes just before she shut it all down, the way her voice had dipped, low and hesitant, as if she'd let herself slip, just for a second. And it had wrecked me. I turned over, pressing my face into the pillow, heart beating too loud in the quiet. It wasn't just a crush. It wasn't just physical. It was deeper, thicker, heavier than that. I was 24. Young, yes, but not foolish. Not inexperienced. I'd been in love before, or what I thought was love, but this felt different. This felt like something that bloomed in silence, in small glances, and invisible threads stretched between us. Something I had no name for, but felt in every cell of my body. I showed up early the next day, pretending I wasn't counting the hours until I'd see her again. The community center was quieter in the mornings. The staff was still prepping snacks and rearranging furniture. The usual hum of chaos hadn't quite begun. I stood near the bulletin board pretending to read a flyer when I saw her walk in. She looked tired, her hair still damp at the ends. No makeup, just jeans, a soft navy sweater, and that same silver chain around her neck.
She paused when she saw me.
For a second, something flickered across her face. Surprise, uncertainty, something deeper. But then it was gone, replaced by that usual calm expression. "You're early," she said, setting her bag down on the desk. "Couldn't sleep," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes met mine for a beat too long. "Coffee?" she asked, motioning toward the kitchenette. I nodded, following her like I wasn't already doing that in every way that mattered. She poured 2 cups, handed me one, and leaned back against the counter. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was thick with everything we weren't saying. "About yesterday," she started, then stopped, eyes fixed on her cup. My throat tightened. "Yeah." She hesitated. I didn't mean to cross a line. I was tired, distracted. "Sometimes I forget to. It's okay." I cut in gently. "You didn't do anything wrong." Her eyes lifted to mine. "Didn't I?" I held her gaze.
"No."
"You didn't." There it was again. That beat of stillness. That invisible pull. That sharp, aching awareness. She looked away first, jaw tight. "I've made a lot of mistakes when it comes to blurring lines. I'm trying not to do that anymore." "Is that what that was?" I asked softly. "A mistake?" Her silence was answer enough. I swallowed the sting and nodded. Right. I'm not saying it wasn't, she trailed off, biting her lip. I just can't afford to be stupid right now. Not with Milo. Not with everything I've already screwed up. The honesty in her voice pierced something in me. You're not stupid. And you're not screwing anything up. I paused, exhaled. I wish you'd stop pretending I'm the only one feeling this. Her eyes flickered. You're young. I'm not a child. I didn't say you were. But you meant it. I meant, she said slowly, that this isn't simple. For you, it might feel like a possibility. For me, it's a risk. A big one. What if it's worth it? I asked, heart pounding. She stared at me like I'd just lit a match between us. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me, I whispered. Tell me why you look at me like that, and then pretend it means nothing. Because it can't mean anything, she said, voice breaking slightly. Because every time I've let myself want something, it's ended badly. Because I don't want Milo to get attached to someone who's not going to stay. Because I don't trust myself anymore. I stepped closer, barely inches between us now. Maybe I'm not going anywhere. Her breath caught. You don't even know me. Then let me. She looked up at me like she wanted to believe it, like she was fighting it with everything she had. And still, her eyes were soft. Still, her fingers trembled slightly where they held the cup. And still, the air between us was molten. But then footsteps echoed down the hallway, and she stepped back so fast it felt like whiplash. The spell broke. The moment vanished. And we were just two people again. Her, guarded and silent, me, aching and burning. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I went through the motions, helping kids paint, wiping juice from tables, tying shoelaces, smiling on autopilot. But every time she walked by, every time her voice called Milo's name or passed instructions to a parent, I felt it. The gravity, the ache, the distance she kept so carefully between us. And the way her eyes still found mine when no one else was looking. When it was finally over and the center began to empty out, I stayed behind to clean. She lingered too, gathering papers, folding blankets. We moved around each other in silence until she finally said, without turning around, "You don't make it easy, you know." My chest tightened. I'm not trying to. She turned slowly. I know.
She took a step toward me.
Then another. And suddenly we were close again. Too close. Her voice dropped. You scare me. I blinked.
Why?
Because you make me feel something I promised myself I wouldn't feel again. Charlotte. And if I let this happen, she shook her head. I don't know if I'd survive it. I reached out, took her hand.
She didn't pull away.
Her fingers curled slowly into mine. Then don't let it happen all at once, I said. Let it happen one breath at a time. She stared at me like she wanted to memorize my face, like she was already losing the battle. She opened her mouth to say something, maybe to stop it, maybe to start it, but then Milo's voice echoed from the hallway, and just like that, it was over. She pulled away, eyes shuttered again, voice steady. See you tomorrow. And she walked out, leaving me in a room that suddenly felt too big, too quiet, too empty. But I smiled, because this time, she hadn't said no. She hadn't said no. That thought replayed in my mind all night, all morning, like a whispered secret I wasn't supposed to hear, but couldn't unhear. Charlotte hadn't said no. She hadn't pulled away until she had to. She hadn't closed the door. She'd only kept it ajar, cracked enough to let hope slip through. I held on to that sliver, like it was a lifeline. When I walked into the center the next afternoon, everything looked the same, but something was different. I could feel it in the air, the way the light seemed softer through the windows, the way her voice carried across the room when she greeted another parent. There was an edge to her movements, a quiet nervousness I hadn't seen before. She noticed me almost immediately. Her eyes flickered toward mine, and then away, too fast, like it hurt to look. I didn't push. I didn't smile. I just let myself exist in her orbit, close enough to feel the gravity, far enough not to burn us both. Milo ran up to me like he always did, arms outstretched, face flushed from whatever game he'd been playing. Can you help me with the spaceship today? he asked breathlessly, dragging me toward the craft table. I grinned, ruffling his hair. Only if I get to be the commander this time. Deal, he shouted, already pulling out markers and cardboard tubes. Charlotte watched us from across the room, her expression unreadable. I could feel her watching, like heat on the back of my neck. Hours passed in a blur of snacks, spills, story time, and glitter explosions. Every now and then, our eyes would meet, and it felt like the rest of the world faded a little. When the center finally emptied and I stayed behind to help clean up, she didn't tell me not to.
She didn't retreat to the office.
Instead, she joined me at the sink, washing out plastic paint cups while I dried them. It was the closest we'd been since that moment in the hallway. Milo adores you, she said softly, not looking at me. He talks about you nonstop at home. He says you're brave and funny and that you know everything about dinosaurs. I smiled, heart full and aching. He's a great kid. He reminds me of my little brother when he was that age, endlessly curious, totally fearless. He wasn't always like that, she said, her voice quieter now. After the divorce, he barely spoke for months. He clung to me constantly, didn't want to play with anyone, didn't laugh. It broke my heart. I looked at her, letting the silence stretch gently between us. You helped him, she said, finally meeting my eyes. You brought him back to life in a way I didn't know how to anymore. I didn't do anything special, I murmured. Yes, you did. Her voice cracked on the last word. She looked away quickly, setting a cup down with a little too much force.
Sorry.
I'm tired. Charlotte, I said, stepping closer. You don't have to explain. I get it, but I'm here. You don't have to do everything alone. She looked at me then, eyes glistening, the weight of exhaustion and longing sitting just beneath the surface. It's not that easy. No, I said softly, but it could be simple. You just have to let it. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, Milo appeared in the doorway, clutching his small backpack, looking up at us with wide eyes. Mom, can we go now? Charlotte blinked, nodded quickly, brushing past me. But just as she reached the door, she turned back. Hey, are you doing anything tomorrow? My heart nearly stopped. No plans. Why? I need to take Milo to an appointment in the morning. I was wondering if you could come with us. He asked for you. I try to keep my voice even. Of course. What time?
9.
I'll text you the address. And just like that, she was gone again, but this time with something fragile and real left behind. The next morning came fast. I didn't even try to hide how nervous I was, standing outside her apartment complex with my hands shoved into my jacket pockets, rehearsing neutral, appropriate things to say. She opened the door wearing a simple sweatshirt and jeans, no makeup, hair still damp from the shower, and she looked so effortlessly beautiful it knocked the air out of me. Hey, she said, stepping aside. Come in. We're almost ready. I walked in and was immediately met with the smell of pancakes and something floral. The apartment was cozy, lived in. Toys scattered across the floor, drawings on the fridge, a couch with a worn blanket draped over the back. It felt like a real home. Milo ran up to me, jumping into my arms. Charlotte watched us with something soft in her eyes. You want coffee? She asked. Yes, please, I said, following her into the kitchen. Our fingers brushed again when she handed me the mug. This time, she didn't pull away so fast. I haven't had anyone in here in a long time, she said, almost to herself. I sipped carefully. Then I'm honored. She smiled, small, tentative, but real. The appointment turned out to be a checkup at the pediatrician. Routine. Boring. But she insisted on sitting in the back seat with Milo while I drove, and our legs touched the whole way there. She didn't move. Neither did I. Afterward, she surprised me. You hungry? She asked. There's a diner around the corner. Milo likes their milkshakes. We ended up in a booth, laughing over sticky menus and spilled fries, Milo asleep against her shoulder by the time dessert arrived. She looked at me across the table, eyes soft, walls lower than I'd ever seen. Thank you, she said quietly. For today. For everything. I reached across the table, brushing my fingers against hers. Anytime. She looked down at our hands, then back up at me. And there it was.
The shift.
The moment. Her lips parted, and I knew she was going to say something that would change everything. But before she could speak, Milo stirred, muttering sleepily, and the spell broke again. She sighed, gathering him gently in her arms. I should get him home. I stood to help, our arms brushing as we settled the bill and walked to the car. The silence was charged all the way back to her apartment. At the door, she turned to me. Do you want to come in? My heart stopped. Only if you want me to. She hesitated for one long second, then opened the door. I stepped inside. She didn't turn on the lights, just moved quietly through the shadows, placing Milo in his bed, kissing his forehead. When she came back out, she leaned against the wall, arms folded, eyes unreadable. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered. Me neither, I said, stepping closer. But I know how I feel. She let out a shaky breath. And how's that? I reached up, brushing her hair behind her ear. Like I've been waiting for this for a long time. She didn't speak, just looked at me like I was the most dangerous thing in the world. And then, slowly, so slowly I could feel every inch of the distance closing, she leaned in. Her lips hovered near mine, breath trembling. Don't make me regret this, she whispered. Never. And when she kissed me, finally, it was soft and broken and beautiful. A collision of fear and longing and everything we had tried so hard to resist. Her lips on mine felt like stepping into fire. Terrifying, consuming, and impossibly right. It wasn't a soft, hesitant kiss for long. The moment her mouth touched mine, something unspoken cracked open between us, and we both fell into it. Her hands cupped my jaw, fingers trembling slightly, and I felt the way she held herself back even as she kissed me like she'd been starved. There was so much in it.
Want.
Regret.
Fear.
But also something deeper. Something that tasted like surrender. When she pulled away, she didn't speak right away. Her eyes were still closed, forehead leaning lightly against mine. We stood like that for several seconds, hearts racing, breath tangled, the silence heavy with everything we couldn't say out loud. We shouldn't have done that, she whispered, her voice breaking against my skin. But I'm not sorry. I opened my eyes, taking in the rawness on her face. Neither am I. She stepped back, running a hand through her hair, trying to breathe, trying to rebuild the walls that had just crumbled. I didn't plan for this, she murmured. I've worked so hard to keep everything under control. And then you walked in with your quiet smiles and your damn dinosaur facts and ruined everything. I smiled gently, stepping closer again, but not touching her. Maybe everything needed a little ruin. She looked at me like she wanted to kiss me again and slap herself for wanting it. You don't know what this means for me, she said. If I fall for you, you already are. She didn't deny it. Her shoulders slumped slightly, defeated, exposed. Do you want me to go? I asked. That question hung between us like a cliff's edge. She stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head.
No.
But I need you to come inside with your eyes open. This isn't easy. This isn't light. I nodded. I'm not looking for easy. She led me into the apartment again, this time slower, heavier. The living room was dim, Milo asleep down the hall. The quiet was thick, intimate. She sat down on the couch, and I followed, close but not too close. We didn't speak for a while. Just sat there, breathing, letting the weight of what had just happened settle in the space around us. Finally, she spoke. I was 23 when I got pregnant. Milo's father and I had already started falling apart, but I convinced myself that a baby would fix things. It didn't. It just made me realize how alone I really was. Her voice cracked on that last part. I turned toward her, slow and careful, my hand reaching for hers. She let me take it. Her fingers tightened around mine like she needed something solid to hold on to. I've spent the last 5 years trying to build a life that wouldn't fall apart again.
A routine.
A rhythm. Something stable for Milo. And now you're here, and it's like my heart woke up and started misbehaving. I squeezed her hand gently. Let it misbehave. She gave me a look. You're dangerous. I leaned in, my voice low. So are you. This time, when I kissed her, it was slower. Not rushed, not desperate, just deep. Meaningful. Her hand moved to my thigh, resting there like she wasn't even aware of it, and the heat from her touch spread through me like wildfire. I pulled her closer, and she let me, her breath catching as our bodies aligned. Our lips moved together in sync, soft moans caught between us, and for a moment, it was everything. Then she pulled away, eyes glassy, voice unsteady. I want you. The confession hit me like lightning. Then have me. She shook her head, eyes full of conflict. Not yet. If we cross that line tonight, I'll fall harder than I can handle. I nodded, even as my body begged her not to stop. Then we won't. You're too understanding, she said, resting her forehead against my shoulder. You're making it impossible to push you away. Maybe you're not supposed to. We stayed like that for a long time, entwined but not tangled. Close, but not lost. Her hand found mine again, and she played with my fingers absently, like it soothed her. Do you know how long it's been since I let someone in like this? She asked. Since I let someone touch me and I didn't flinch? Tell me, I whispered. Never, she said. Not like this. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them back. Then I'll make sure every touch from now on is one you want. She kissed me again, but this one was short, reverent. Then she stood, pulling me gently with her. Come on, she said. You're sleeping here. My heart flipped. What? It's late. You're staying. But not in my bed, she added quickly. Not yet. I smiled. Couch is perfect. She handed me a pillow and blanket, her fingers lingering on mine. Good night. Good night, Charlotte. She paused in the hallway, looking at me one last time before disappearing into her room. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, heart still racing, her scent still on my skin. And I realized something I hadn't fully let myself admit until that moment. I was already in love with her, and it was far too late to stop. I woke up with the scent of her home in my hair and her voice echoing through my dreams. The morning light spilled through the thin curtain in the living room, warming the blanket wrapped around me. For a moment, I didn't move. I just lay there, replaying everything from the night before. Her kiss, her confession, the way she'd touched my face like she wasn't sure if I was real. And then she asked me to stay. Not because she needed help. Not because she was being polite. But because she wanted me there. That meant everything. I stretched slowly, blinking the sleep from my eyes. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of a child humming from the kitchen. I sat up, heart beating a little faster. When I padded toward the doorway, barefoot, still wrapped in the blanket, I saw them. Charlotte stood at the stove in a faded t-shirt and cotton shorts, barefoot, hair messy, face bare. And she was beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. Milo sat at the counter on a stool, swinging his legs and humming a tune I didn't recognize, grinning when he saw me. You're still here, he said excitedly. Told you she'd stay, Charlotte murmured, her back to me, but there was a smile in her voice. My heart flipped. Morning, I said softly. Want some eggs? She asked, glancing over her shoulder. Her eyes met mine, and for a second, everything stopped again. I nodded. Yeah, thanks. I took the stool next to Milo, who immediately launched into a full explanation of the game he wanted to build later with blankets and chairs. Charlotte slid a plate in front of me, poured coffee into a mug, and slid it across the counter. Our fingers brushed. She didn't flinch.
She didn't pull back.
Her eyes held mine a beat longer than they needed to. There was no need to say anything. Everything was already there. After breakfast, Milo insisted we help him build Dino Fortress 2.0 in the living room, and Charlotte and I ended up crawling around under chairs, laughing, tying blankets to doorknobs and stacking pillows like castle walls. It was easy. Too easy. Like we'd done this 100 times. Like this was already something we shared. At one point, I looked up from where I was taping a corner down and caught Charlotte staring at me. Not just looking, staring. And she didn't look away. When Milo finally wore himself out and collapsed inside the fortress with a toy in each hand, I stood and stretched, feeling her gaze still on me. "Coffee refill?" I asked. She nodded. "Please." I followed her into the kitchen again. This time, the silence between us felt different. Charged. Expectant. She leaned against the counter, watching me as I poured. "You're good with him," she said. "He loves you." "He's easy to love," I said without thinking. Her eyes flickered. "So are you." The words left her mouth and hung there.
Raw.
Unfiltered.
Real.
My heart stuttered. "Charlotte, I don't say things like that," she said quickly, as if ashamed of it. "I never say things like that. You don't have to explain." I liked hearing it. She looked away, chewing her lip. "I'm scared," she admitted, "of how fast this feels. Of how much I want you. Of how much I already care." I stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat radiating off her. "I'm scared too," I said, "but I'm still here." She didn't say anything. She just looked at me with eyes that had been so guarded for so long, and now were letting me in. I reached up, slowly, gently, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She leaned into the touch, closing her eyes. I didn't think I'd want someone again. Not like this. Not like this. Her voice cracked on the last word. I cupped her cheek, and she opened her eyes, staring straight into mine. "Then don't fight it." And then I kissed her. Slow, deep, this time without the edge of hesitation. Her hand slid around my waist, pulling me into her, and I let myself melt into the feeling of her body against mine, the smell of her skin, the way she tasted like coffee and cinnamon. We kissed until the air between us was too hot to breathe, until our hands wandered without apology, until she was pressed against the kitchen counter, and I was wrapped in her arms like I belonged there. Her fingers tangled in my hair, and I felt the soft moan in her throat before I heard it. She broke the kiss first, chest rising and falling, eyes wide with something that looked like panic, but also hunger. "We have to stop," she said, breathless. "Do we?" I whispered against her lips. "I'm going to lose control," she warned. "I want you so bad it hurts." "Then lose it," I whispered. Her hands gripped my hips, and I could feel her restraint like a live wire between us. She was trying so hard not to fall, but she already was. "If we do this," she said, voice shaking, "there's no going back." "I don't want to go back," I said. "I want all of you." She groaned, forehead pressed to mine, eyes squeezed shut. "God, you're going to wreck me." I kissed her again, deep and desperate, and she responded like she couldn't help herself anymore. Her hands moved under my shirt, and I gasped against her mouth. It was real. It was happening. Until... "Mom?" Milo's voice rang from the other room. We froze. She pulled back instantly, eyes wide. "Shit," she whispered, backing away. She pressed a hand to her lips, her chest still heaving. He can't see this." "Not yet." I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. "It's okay." "I want you," she said again, voice ragged. "But not like this. Not when he's awake. Not when I have to pretend nothing's happening." I reached for her hand, squeezed it. "Then tonight." She nodded. "Tonight." And when she stepped away to go to her son, I stood there in the kitchen, flushed and burning, the taste of her still on my tongue. And I knew tonight would change everything. The second I stepped back into her apartment that night, I knew something had shifted. The lights were low. A single lamp glowed in the corner of the living room. Milo was already asleep. Charlotte had texted me an hour earlier saying he went to bed without protest, too exhausted from our fortress adventures to resist. I stood by the door for a moment, holding my breath, letting the quiet wrap around me like a signal. She appeared from the hallway, barefoot, wearing soft black leggings and an oversized sweater that slid slightly off her shoulder. Her hair was loose, falling in waves around her face. No makeup, just her, unfiltered, unafraid. "Hey," she said, voice soft. "Hey," I replied, stepping inside, closing the door behind me. She didn't ask if I wanted tea.
Didn't offer small talk.
She just looked at me like she'd been thinking about this all day, and now that I was here, she didn't know where to start. I walked toward her slowly, letting her feel every second of the space closing between us. When I reached her, I placed my hands gently on her waist. Her breath hitched. She stared up at me with wide, dark eyes. "I'm scared," she whispered. "You can stop this anytime," I said. "Just say the word." She shook her head. "That's not what I mean. I'm scared because I want this too much. Because I don't know how to let someone touch me and not lose myself." I leaned in, brushing my lips against her temple. "Then let yourself go. I'll catch you." She closed her eyes, and for the first time, I saw her truly surrender. She leaned in and kissed me. Not soft, not hesitant, but full of want. Raw and real and desperate. I kissed her back, hands moving to her lower back, pulling her closer until our bodies aligned like they were made for this. She let out a soft moan against my mouth, her fingers tangling in my shirt, gripping me like she couldn't get close enough. I walked her backwards slowly, guiding us toward the couch. We never broke the kiss. When we reached it, I sat down, pulling her gently onto my lap, and she straddled me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her sweater shifted with the movement, revealing more skin, her collarbone, the soft slope of her shoulder. I ran my hands along her thighs, her hips, her back, memorizing every curve, every tremble. She kissed me deeper, harder, and when I bit gently at her bottom lip, she gasped, grinding down against me with need. I pulled her sweater over her head, slowly, giving her every chance to stop me. She didn't. She raised her arms and let it fall to the floor. My breath caught. She wore a simple black bra, soft lace, nothing elaborate, but on her, it felt like art. Her skin was warm under my hands, and when I kissed along her jaw, down her neck, her hands gripped my shoulders tighter. "God," she whispered, "I forgot what this feels like. Being wanted like this." I kissed just beneath her ear. "You have no idea how much I want you."
"Show me," she said.
And I did. I carried her to the bedroom, slow and deliberate, like she deserved every second of worship. The room was dim, the curtains drawn, the bed already turned down. She lay back on the sheets, her chest rising and falling rapidly, eyes locked on mine. I climbed over her, kissing her again, deeper now, like I was finally free to let everything pour out. I kissed her neck, her collarbone, the swell of her breasts. I undressed her with care, reverence, until she was beneath me, bare and breathtaking. She tried to hide it first, arms crossing her stomach, turning her face, but I stopped her. I kissed every place she tried to cover. I told her she was beautiful, over and over, until she started to believe it, until she stopped hiding. I made love to her like I'd dreamed of doing since the first time I saw her. Slow, intentional, listening to every sound she made, every breath, every whisper of my name. Her fingers clung to me like I was the only solid thing in the world. Her legs wrapped around my waist, pulling me deeper, closer. "I forgot how to let someone touch me," she said at one point, voice shaking. "You remembered," I whispered. "Let me keep reminding you." Her back arched under me, her nails dug into my skin. And when she came, trembling, moaning my name against my neck, it wasn't just her body that opened. It was everything. I followed her over the edge seconds later, breathless, heart pounding, completely unraveled. We lay tangled in the sheets, her head on my chest, her fingers drawing soft circles on my skin. The silence was warm now, comfortable, honest. I kissed the top of her head. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "More than okay. I feel alive." "You were always alive," I said. "You just needed someone to remind you how to feel it." She looked up at me, her expression soft, vulnerable. "What happens now?" "Whatever you want," I said. "There's no pressure, no rules, just you and me." "And Milo," she added. "Of course, Milo too." She smiled, real and full, the kind that lit up her entire face. Stay tonight. I'm not going anywhere. She closed her eyes and pressed her face into my neck. Good, because I think this time I want someone to stay. And I did. All night, wrapped around her like a promise. The morning light crept through the edge of the curtains, painting a soft gold glow across her skin. I woke to the warmth of her pressed against me, her leg draped over mine, her head nestled in the crook of my neck, her breath slow and steady, like the world had finally stopped spinning long enough for her to rest. For a moment, I didn't move. I just lay there, listening to the gentle rhythm of her breath, feeling the way her fingers still clutched the fabric of my shirt like she needed to be anchored. I ran my hand softly down the curve of her back, brushing the tips of my fingers over her spine. She stirred slightly, but didn't pull away. It was intimate in a way that went beyond last night. This was what intimacy really meant. Waking up beside someone and not needing to speak. Just breathing the same air. Just feeling them there, real and close and completely undone. Charlotte shifted, stretching slowly, her legs sliding across mine. She blinked her eyes open and looked at me with that vulnerable, sleep-heavy expression that made my heart twist in the best possible way. Morning, she whispered. Hi, I said, smiling softly. Did you sleep? Better than I have in years, she murmured, brushing a kiss against my collarbone. With you next to me? I kissed the top of her head. I slept like I was exactly where I belonged. She exhaled, long and shaky, and I felt the hesitation settle into her shoulders like a familiar weight. You okay? I asked gently. She nodded, but it wasn't convincing. Last night was more than I expected. Too much. No, she said quickly. Not too much. Just real. And that scares me. I tilted her chin up to meet my eyes. You don't have to run from this. Not from me. I know, she said. It's just, I don't want to mess it up. I don't want Milo to get hurt if this isn't going anywhere, I said. Not unless you want it to. Her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before, trust. Pure, raw, and trembling. And then, a tiny knock echoed from the hallway. Mom? Milo's sleepy voice carried through the door. Charlotte froze, then sat up, adjusting the sheets around herself, heart visibly pounding. Just a second, baby, she called out. She looked at me, eyes wide with panic and guilt. I didn't plan for him to see you here. I didn't. It's okay, I said calmly. Really? What do I say? You tell the truth. In the way he'll understand. She hesitated, then nodded, slowly getting out of bed and pulling on her robe. I followed her with my eyes as she walked to the door and opened it just a crack. Hey, sweetie, she said softly. Are you hungry? Is she still here? Milo asked, peeking around her legs. His eyes lit up when he saw me sitting up in bed, blanket pulled up over my chest. She stayed. Charlotte looked torn, but before she could respond, Milo grinned.
Cool.
And just like that, the tension broke. I laughed softly, relieved. Charlotte smiled, shoulders lowering slightly.
Yeah.
She stayed. Can we make pancakes again? He asked. She turned back to look at me, and I saw the flicker of awe in her eyes, like she couldn't believe this wasn't a disaster. What do you think? She asked me. I got up, pulled on my shirt, and joined them in the hallway. I think pancakes sound perfect. Milo grabbed my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, and we all headed to the kitchen, still barefoot, still wrapped in sleep and morning softness. The pancakes were a mess. Milo accidentally poured too much batter. Charlotte burned the first one. I dropped a spatula, but none of it mattered. We were laughing together, like this wasn't a fragile new thing trying to survive, but something that had already begun to take root. After breakfast, while Milo played on the floor with his toy spaceship, Charlotte leaned against the counter beside me, watching him. He likes you too much, she said. It's going to make this harder if... Don't, I said gently, turning to her. Don't start preparing for it to end. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know how not to. I reached for her hand. Then start small, one moment at a time, like now. She looked at our fingers, intertwined. I wish I met you before I learned how to be afraid. Then let me show you how to be fearless again." She leaned in and kissed me, slow and soft, like a thank you she didn't know how to say with words. We spent the afternoon together. I helped Charlotte fold laundry while Milo built an entire city out of cereal boxes. She told me small things about her life, what kind of music she used to love before motherhood consumed her, the college she dropped out of, the tattoo she almost got and then didn't. I soaked in every word like it mattered, because it did. Every single piece of her mattered. As the day faded into evening and I started collecting my things to leave, Charlotte followed me to the door. "Stay again," she said suddenly, catching me off guard.
I turned to her, surprised.
"Are you sure?" She nodded. "Not because of what happened last night. Not for that.
Just stay."
I don't want to fall asleep without you." I stepped close and brushed my thumb over her cheek. "Then I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, softer this time. Less afraid. "You're dangerous," she whispered. "You keep saying that," I murmured against her mouth. "But I think you like it." Her laugh was quiet and real. And then she kissed me again, this time with calm, with intention. Like she already knew I'd be in her bed that night, and the night after, and maybe more than that. And in that moment, I realized something. She wasn't just letting me into her life. She was letting me into her heart. And that, more than anything, was the beginning of everything. The sound of the doorbell shattered the calm like glass. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind that felt sacred, blankets still tangled in the living room, Milo humming to himself as he colored, Charlotte's bare shoulder brushing mine every time she reached for her coffee. We were a unit. Not perfect, not polished, but something real, something forming. But the second that chime echoed through the apartment, everything shifted. Charlotte froze. Her coffee cup trembled slightly in her hand. "Are you expecting someone?" I asked. She didn't answer, just stood slowly, eyes fixed on the door like it was something dangerous. "Charlotte." She walked over and opened it before I could ask again, and when I saw the man standing there, I felt my entire body go still.
Tall.
Early 40s, neatly dressed, and carrying a small paper bag from the bakery down the street. He smiled, casual and warm. "Thought I'd drop these off." "Milo's favorite," he said, holding up the bag. Charlotte didn't smile. "You shouldn't be here, Ben."
Ben.
I didn't need confirmation. I already knew. This was him, the ex-Milo's father. And I was standing barefoot in his old kitchen, wearing a t-shirt that wasn't mine. "I figured since I was in the neighborhood." "You're never in this neighborhood," she said coldly. "What do you want?" "To see my son." "You don't get to drop in unannounced," she said, her voice sharper now. "That's not how this works." He looked past her then. Saw me. I stood there, frozen, unsure of what to do. "And who's this?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Charlotte stepped in front of the door slightly, like she wanted to shield me from him. "Not your business." "New babysitter?" he asked, tone light but eyes calculating. "You're wasting your time," she snapped. "You brought croissants. Say hi to Milo, then leave." He held her gaze for a long moment, then smirked. "You always did get territorial when you were hiding something." She didn't respond, just turned and called out, "Milo, come here, baby." Milo ran into the room, all sunshine and innocence. "Dad," he shouted, throwing his arms around the man. I watched the moment with a strange twist in my chest. Ben knelt down, hugging him tightly. "Hey, buddy. Brought you something." Milo grinned, digging into the bag. Charlotte stood stiffly, arms crossed, not looking at me. I suddenly felt invisible. Or worse, like a stranger intruding on something I didn't belong to. I slipped quietly into the hallway, letting the bathroom door close behind me as I sat on the edge of the tub, trying to breathe. What was I doing? I was just the girl who showed up months ago, helping with after-school programs, smiling too much, loving too fast. And she had a past. A child. A history I could never erase or compete with. I heard the door shut again, and voices muffled on the other side of the apartment. A knock came gently on the bathroom door. "Hey," Charlotte said softly. "Can I come in?" I opened the door. She stepped inside, her face pale. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. He's his father, I said. You shared a life. That's not something I'm trying to erase. You're not, she said quickly. You're not replacing anyone. You're. What am I? I asked, voice softer than I meant. She looked at me like she didn't have the answer. You're the first person who's made me feel again, who's made me want, who's made me believe there could be more. But seeing him just now, it was like all the fear came rushing back. Fear of what? I asked. That this isn't real? No, she said. That it's too real. And I'm not ready. That I'll mess it up. That Milo will get caught in the middle. That you'll leave. I'm not leaving. People always say that before they do. I stepped closer. I'm not people. She looked down. I just need space to think. My heart ached. Okay, I'll go. No, she said, grabbing my wrist. I don't want you to go. I need a minute. So I sat outside with Milo for a while. We played cards, laughed, and he kept asking when I'd sleep over again. Mom smiles more when you're here, he said at one point. She doesn't smile like that for other people. I swallowed hard. She's special. You are too, he said, and it almost broke me. Later that night, I found Charlotte in the kitchen, staring out the window. The dishes were untouched, her sweater sleeves pulled over her hands. I've been thinking, she said, not turning around. If I let this grow, if I really open the door to you, there's no turning back. Do you want to turn back? She turned to me, and her eyes were wet. No, I walked over to her and pulled her into my arms. She melted into me like she'd been waiting all day to fall. Then let's go forward. Together. She nodded slowly. But I need you to be patient with me. I'll falter. I'll push. I'll panic. But I need you to keep holding me. Always, I whispered into her hair. Always. And when she kissed me again that night, it was different. Not frantic. Not desperate. Just deep. Sure. Full of promise. And I knew, no matter what ghosts came back, no matter who knocked on that door again, she wasn't going to face it alone anymore. The message came late. Too late for anything good. Charlotte had been quiet all evening, her fingers distracted on the rim of her coffee mug, her eyes distant even as I rubbed her back on the couch. Milo had gone to bed hours ago, but whatever peace we'd found after Ben's surprise visit was already crumbling. I watched her unlock her phone again and again, staring at the same unread message like it had teeth. When she finally opened it, I watched her face fall. What is it? I asked gently. She didn't look up. He's filing for shared custody. The words landed like a stone in my chest. What? She swallowed hard, pressing the phone face down on the cushion.
Ben.
He says he wants to be more present. He says it's time. But has he ever?
No.
Never. He's never asked for more than a few afternoons every couple months. He's never shown up for Milo's school things. He doesn't even know what kind of cereal he likes. But now, suddenly, he wants weekends, holidays, summer rotations. Why now? I asked, though I already fear the answer. Charlotte looked up at me, her voice hoarse. Because of you. My heart dropped. Me?
He saw you here.
He saw the way Milo looks at you. He saw me.
Happy.
Grounded. Not his. And now he wants control back. That's not fair. None of this is fair, she whispered, eyes glistening. I knew it. I knew the second I let myself want you, the world would find a way to punish me for it. I flinched, not because I didn't understand, but because I did. Deeply. She stood, pacing now. Her robe loose around her body, her bare feet soft against the floor, but her energy storming. He's going to drag us through court. He'll say I'm unstable, distracted, that I'm letting some stranger raise our kid. I'm not a stranger, I said, voice sharp. No, she whispered, stopping. But to them, you are. You're young. You don't have ties. You have no legal ground here. No weight in Milo's life beyond what I've given you. That's not nothing, I said, stepping closer. I love him. I love you. And that's exactly what makes this so dangerous, she said, voice cracking. Because the more I love you, the more I stand to lose. So what? I asked, breath catching. You'd rather cut me out than let him use me against you? She turned away, her shoulders shaking. Don't say that. Tell me I'm wrong. Silence. I crossed the room and grabbed her hand, forcing her to look at me. Tell me I haven't become part of this family. You have, she said, broken. You have, and that's what terrifies me. Because if the court gets involved, if they start picking at every choice I've made, they'll see you as a risk. And I'll lose him. I'll lose everything. My throat burned. Then what are you saying? Her lip trembled. I don't know. Do you want me to go? The question came out small, barely audible. She didn't answer, and that silence hurt more than a scream. I nodded slowly, stepping back. Right. Please, she whispered. Please don't make me choose. You already are. I turned away, heading to the door, feeling every ounce of love between us stretch thin and fray. But just as my hand reached the handle, her voice shattered the room. Wait. I froze. Don't leave, she whispered. I'm not asking you to disappear. I'm asking you to give me time, to figure out how to protect Milo, and still hold on to this. I don't know how yet, but I'm trying. I turned, my own tears blurring the edges of her face. I need to know you're not going to run. I need to know you'll still be here when I stop running. I walked to her, slow, aching, and pulled her into my arms. She clung to me like a lifeline, her breath catching in my neck. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, I said. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. She kissed me then, desperate and slow, her hands in my hair, her body pressing into mine like she was trying to memorize every inch. It wasn't about sex. It wasn't even about comfort. It was about not letting go, about holding on to something even when everything else threatened to fall apart. We stood there in the half-dark, heart to heart, tears on our lips, love in our silence. And when she finally spoke again, her voice was barely a breath. Don't give up on me. I cupped her face. I never will. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Charlotte had barely touched her coffee, her leg bouncing under the table, fingers twisting in the hem of her sweater. Milo was already at school, and the silence in the apartment felt too full, too sharp. I watched her listen, nod once, say thank you in a voice that didn't sound like hers, and hang up. What did they say? I asked gently. She looked at me, her eyes unreadable. It's official. He's filed the motion. My heart ached, but I nodded. Okay, so what do we do now? She blinked. I stood, walked over to her, and took her hands. You think I'm going to let you go through this alone? She looked down, silent for a moment. I don't want you to get pulled into something ugly. I'm already in it. I'm not going anywhere. Her eyes filled, and I saw it, relief.
Pain. Love.
All tangled into one quiet exhale. She pulled me close and buried her face in my neck. I don't know how I got here. To this version of myself. The one who lets someone love her. The one who hopes again. I held her tighter. You didn't let me love you, Charlotte. You made me want to. With every piece of who you are. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, meetings, stress. Charlotte was a wall of focus and fire, but I saw the cracks when she thought I wasn't looking. She carried the weight of motherhood like armor, but I felt the cost in the way she clung to me at night, breath shallow, body curled into mine like she was afraid she'd shatter. One evening, Milo came home from school with a drawing. Stick figures, a sun, and 3 people holding hands. That's me, he said proudly. And that's Mommy. And that's you. I looked at the small version of myself drawn with a blue heart over the chest, and something in me broke open. Charlotte stared at it like she couldn't breathe. You put me in your family, I said softly. Milo shrugged. You are. She didn't say anything, but her hand found mine, held it so tight I felt it in my chest. When the hearing finally came, Charlotte walked in wearing a navy dress and calm fury in her eyes. I sat behind her, Milo at home with a sitter, and watched her speak with clarity, strength, and a quiet kind of fire that no one could ignore. Ben tried to play the role, concerned father, reformed man, but the judge saw through it. Charlotte laid out the facts, the history, the truth. And when the judge asked about me, she paused. She is not Milo's guardian, she said, steady, but she is part of his life, of ours, and that has brought us joy, stability, and love. I will not apologize for the home we've built. I held my breath. The room was still. The judge nodded once. I see no reason to disrupt what is clearly working. Shared holidays will be scheduled, but primary custody remains unchanged. We didn't cry until we were outside. She broke first. Her hands shook as she pressed her face into my shoulder, laughing and sobbing at once. We did it, I whispered, kissing her hair. You did it. That night, Milo crawled into bed with us and fell asleep between us, his little hand wrapped around 2 of my fingers. Charlotte stared at him, then at me, and her eyes filled again, but this time with something softer. I want to do something crazy, she whispered. Tell me. I want to ask you to move in. My breath caught. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. I leaned in and kissed her, slow and deep. Then ask me. She laughed, tears spilling. Move in with me, with us. Make this home yours too. Yes, I said, voice shaking. 1,000 times yes. The weeks that followed were a blur of boxes, new routines, laughter, adjustment. I got my own toothbrush in the bathroom, my own drawer in the kitchen, a shelf in the closet, and a place at the table. At night, she still curled into me. But now, there was no tension, no weight, just peace, just her, just us. One night, as we lay in bed, her hand resting on my stomach, she whispered, "Do you still feel it?" Feel what? That heart-racing, terrifying thing. I turned to her, smiling. Every time I look at you. She kissed me then, slow and certain, her fingers tangled in my hair. Good, because you still wreck me. We wreck each other. And somehow, she murmured, that made us whole.
And it did.
Every scar, every fear, every kiss and night and messy, beautiful day. It all led to this. A love that made us brave. A family that chose itself. A future that no longer scared us. And a heart that would never stop racing. Thank you so much for your support, whether it's by liking, commenting, sharing, or sending your super thanks. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next video.